Tops and Fanatics have taken aim at the good old boy network in the hobby, and I say it's about time.
I'm feeling good, getting better, feeling good, I can't let it go. I'm feeling good, 'cause I never say never.
Hello, and here we go. Welcome to another episode of The Geoff Wilson Show. The comments are brutal. They're a dictator, a monopoly, predators, evil. This is what some are saying about Topps now that they put strict limits on what card shops can do with their wax. But these comments are misguided. All Topps is really doing is putting an end to the dusty old card shop, getting 10 times the wax it needs and lining its pockets as it sells its extra wax out the back door to other dealers and breakers. Topps wants to cut the middlemen out of the distribution chain, and it's A-okay with me. Now, some question whether Topps will just pocket these extra profits instead of passing the savings to the collector. But even if Topps does make more money, it will substantiate the massive investment they're now putting into marketing and improving their products. I'd frankly rather Topps have that extra money to grow the hobby rather than the middlemen that add no value to the collector. This is another move by Topps and Fanatics to firm up their grasp on how product is distributed and sold. To me, it's smart business, and I believe it actually will be a good thing for the sports card hobby. So lots to break down here today,
Yeah.
Kelly. I know my opinions on this are contrary to what most people are saying
There's
on
a lot of
social
chatter.
media and YouTube comments and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I look at this and I'm like, makes sense for Topps, makes sense for Fanatics, and I think it makes sense for the hobby, and we'll talk about why.
Yeah, well, so the terms are obviously came out in sort of a business sense. So for the everyday collector, I guess explain like in detail what the exact terms were that they came out with.
Yeah, so what happened is Topps essentially changed the terms in their distribution agreement with sports card shops that have direct accounts. Direct accounts means these are the shops that buy their product directly from Topps. So these are the shops that get their product at the biggest discount. Any card shop or breaker wants to have a direct account. Not everyone gets it. They're hard to get.
Right. That's been the case for a very long time.
Yes,
It's handshake deals that have been in existence for many years.
A lot of handshake deals and a lot of funny business around some of those deals. And we'll talk about that. But for those, card shops and breakers that have the ability to buy from Topps directly, Topps has changed some of the terms of the relationship. And they specified things such as, if we're going to sell your card shop wax, you can only sell that wax in your store. You are not allowed to sell that wax online.
Okay.
You are not allowed to put that wax for sale on DealerNet, which is a website that card shops use to sell wax to other card shops and to breakers.
Okay.
You are not allowed to do online breaking with that wax because that requires another contract with Topps. What Topps has is Topps has direct accounts for sports card shops, and then they have direct accounts for breakers. Now, a sports card shop that also does online breaking can actually get both types of accounts.
Right.
But what was happening is some of the sports card shops that didn't have breaking contracts, they were getting the wax for their shop, but then they were using it for breaking, or they were selling it to breakers, or they were selling it to other dealers. And Topps basically is just locking down the way that product is distributed and saying, look, if we're selling you product for your hobby shop, it has to be sold in your hobby shop. And that's not something that has been the case with how a lot of hobby shops have operated recently. They're also putting much more stringent reporting requirements on hobby shops. Hobby shops now have to be accountable for reporting regularly back to Topps how all of the wax is being sold so that Topps can see their sales mix and what they're selling and how much they're selling and everything like that.
Which is good understanding for Topps also what sells.
Sure.
Yeah.
Who it's scary for is it's scary for the card shop owners that have been getting a lot of extra allocation of wax because of relationships that they've built over the years. They're getting more wax than they need, and they're making a really handsome profit off of being able to sell that wax through other means, whether it's online or to other card shops that don't have direct accounts, to other breakers that don't have direct accounts. That's been a big profit source for a number of card shops. And now that profit source is being examined and essentially being shut down. And that's where that's what's got a lot of people, kind of nervous about this. But Topps did do the same thing when they cut distributors out. Like Topps and Fanatics cut GTS Distribution, one of the biggest distributors, because they wanted to cut middlemen out of this process and sell direct. And so, I mean, it's going down the path of that happening. One point I want to make is this does not change the economic model for other things that card shops can do. Like card shops can still buy and sell singles.
Right.
Card shops can still provide grading services, bulk grading submission services. Card shops can still largely...
They can still host trade nights.
They can still sell supplies. They can still operate in the way that they really were supposed to be operating. They just don't get to play the game of being almost like a mini distributor in the distribution chain anymore.
So I guess my biggest question out of everything of the terms that you're coming out with, though, is the online selling of the wax. Like, does that not then limit the ability for a local card shop to sell wax online to their customers who maybe can't come into the store?
Sure, it does. And you know, Topps did say that you can apply for special permission or whatever to be able to do that. But yes, that may be a change for some, especially those who rely on their website as a heavy, means for selling product.
It's also a way to support small businesses, though. Also, if like, for instance, our card shops are sort of scattered in Georgia, right? So if I wanted to support Joe, but I wasn't able to necessarily get up there, but I maybe wanted to buy a box from him and have it shipped to me, that's a way in order for me to do so. So now I can't do that. I would have to physically go to the shop in order to obtain that wax. So that I feel like is a little limited in the terms that came out.
I understand, and you're right. But I assume that's because Fanatics and Topps want to sell directly online to the end consumer. I assume that's what it is. I assume they're looking at that saying, I think the big thing from Topps and Fanatics perspective, and I get this, and I think that this is the right way of thinking. They want whoever has their products to resell, whoever's going to be able to profit off of their products, they want those entities to add value back to the hobby, back to the collector.
Okay.
If you are setting up a nice modern card shop experience, you are adding value. So they're happy to reward you with product. If you're doing online breaking and you're really investing in the quality of the stream and the presentation and you're providing good customer service, you're adding value and they want to invest in you. But if you're a card shop that's simply putting your products on a Shopify website and then shipping them across the country because your price is a little bit better than somebody else's, how much value is that transaction adding, right?
Okay.
And so that's what I think Topps and Fanatics, because they're looking at.
You feel like that's the reason that they did this. That's the reason that they decided to lay out these terms. I mean, when we talked about this in office, and you said this is something that they said they were going to do from the beginning.
They want and they want to free up the money. I mean, this is about money for sure. They want to free up the money. They're looking at that, saying some of these card shops are getting crazy allocations of wax that's well beyond what they need to service their local clientele that come into the shop. And so why, and then they're doing all these things with it, selling it online, selling it to dealers, breakers. So why are they getting this? Why are they getting to serve as kind of this middleman distributor? And so Topps and Fanatics is just saying, we don't want that anymore. We're fine with people selling like direct to their actual like in-market customers. But outside of that, either Topps and Fanatics wants to sell direct themselves, or they'd rather support other businesses in those cities, or in the cities where people are trying to buy wax, as opposed to having a card shop in North Carolina ship wax off to, a customer in Denver. I think they'd rather have more direct accounts with card shops in Denver and have those stores provide a great experience so that those customers can shop locally.
Yeah, well, it opens more opportunity for smaller card shops in other smaller local areas to pop up, because then they become the direct source in that area for the product needs that those consumers will have. So I get that, but in the general, like laying out the terms, is that you think the reason that Fanatics and or Topps has laid out these terms and is in order to cut out these middlemen, right? In order to make sure that these smaller local hobby shops can be entered into the game and not be completely weighed out by these guys that are sort of holding allocation ahead of them or over their heads.
I think that's a good way of saying it. Topps is also being more generous right now. From what I can see, from what I've heard, with giving new hobby shops direct accounts. It previously was really difficult to get a direct account with Topps or Panini. And that's why a lot of these middlemen and distributors popped up. In fact, if you were a new hobby shop, the advice that was immediately given to you was form relationships with the distributors, because your chance of getting a direct account right away is pretty much non-existent. So go try to get product from one of the big distributors like GTS. Now I think Topps is saying we're cutting distributors out. We're cutting card shops that are doing kind of this hoarding and redistribution of wax out, but we are going to add more direct accounts. So we're going to work more directly with hobby shops that actually need it, which in the long run could be a good thing, because it could mean that if you're opening up a hobby shop, you hopefully will have the opportunity to deal directly with Topps, and you will not have to be beholden to the extra markups that distributors were putting on products, that card shops that were then reselling to other card shops were putting on products. That's going to go away.
So you think that's a direct source of why wax started climbing in price, especially with the boom that we saw in, coming out of 2019, 2020, obviously COVID, when we saw this huge wax boom. You think that a lot of the reason for that markup price was those middlemen?
There was a lot of discussion about how the distributors in particular, the big distribution companies, were behaving in 2020, 2021, and how they were getting their big supply of wax from Panini or Topps that they were then supposed to sell on to card shops, but that they were actually holding a lot of the supply back because of how hot the market was. They were only making smaller portions of it available, and then they were kind of doing waves of making more and more of it available at higher and higher and higher prices.
Product in demand.
They, as they saw the market going up, they were the ones saying like, maybe we should not sell it all immediately, even though that's really what our purpose is and what we're supposed to do. Maybe we should hold on to some of it ourselves and ride the price increase wave and then make that available, which is what they did. And so, I mean, that's part of the reason why wax became so expensive. That is absolutely part of it. All of these, that type of behavior happening and people being in the middle of this whole chain has contributed to it. And this is, I think, just the first of multiple moves by Topps and Fanatics to kind of regain control over people who are selling their products. By having more direct accounts, Topps is also able to better control the end customer experience by way of putting rules on the card shops. Now, card shops aren't going to like this, but I think Topps is going to do things like set minimum standards for what a card shop needs to look like and what type of service it needs to provide. I think Topps is going to say, you can't have like the old dusty card shop where there's tons of cardboard boxes stacked up, where there's, you walk in and it's, there's wood paneling. It's like 1980 is calling you. Like, I recognize there's hobby nostalgia. Like, I recognize there's a lot of collectors who really
that feeling.
They want that, and they really defend that card shop.
Absolutely.
Because that's what they remember from when they grew up and everything. I get that, but that's not the future. Topps and Fanatics are wanting to grow this market by 10x. They're wanting to bring their stated goal, their publicly stated goal is to grow the collector base by 10 times, which means that you're going to have millions of new collectors walking into card shops for the very first time if Topps and Fanatics is successful. Those collectors have no nostalgia back to what card shops looked like in the 1980s or what their childhood emotions were. Those collectors are going to walk into these shops and take one look around and go, where the hell am I? This place looks like it looks like it hasn't changed since 1984.
I mean, we've talked about the whole Apple experience when you walk into the store, and it's, it's clean, it's sleek. You can see directly what products you should be looking at immediately when you come to the store. I mean, you can still have these moments of nostalgia in these shops. I mean, if we want to talk about, the aesthetic of a dusty old card shop that wants to upgrade, keep a nostalgia corner. Keep a corner that echoes back to that nostalgia of walking into a card shop in the 80s. And that way you service that clientele that wants that feeling. But I mean, we're a updating and advancing hobby.
It is. And
we have to move forward.
And
I mean, I know we've gone
yeah.
on this. We've had a whole conversation about this, about hobby card shops and the aesthetics that they need to now present, like moving into the future. But like the nostalgia is like, it's nostalgia.
Yeah.
You don't need a whole store for it.
Yeah, it's nostalgia that's lost on the, all the new collectors
The
that
new
they're trying to
consumers,
bring
yeah.
in. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with you. I mean, it doesn't mean you shouldn't honor history and you shouldn't honor what card shops were like. You absolutely should. But Topps wants the new collectors coming in to walk into a card shop and get more of an Apple Store-like experience rather than getting this, old Dusty's 1980 shop experience. And I get it. And
Yeah.
I understand why they're doing it. And frankly, if I were Fanatics and if I had invested billions and billions of dollars into the growth of this, like Fanatics is doing, I would want the card shops to look like Apple stores as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So you think that with the changes outside of cutting middlemen, that this is the benefit that Topps is bringing with these changes is more direct control with the card shops, right? More direct control on how they look and like how they run. And
how they service, how they operate.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see more of that because if Topps, so by cutting out the middlemen, Topps is saying we want to sell direct more.
Right.
They want to set up more card shops with direct accounts. That cuts out the middlemen, that allows Topps to work more directly with all these card shops. And that also puts Topps in some form of control over more card shops because now and more breaking operations. They want to do the same thing with breakers.
Right.
They want to have more control because it allows them not just the financial savings of cutting out the middlemen, but it also allows them to have greater influence on how those businesses are operated. And that's where Topps can begin to say things like, you have to meet certain minimum standards in order to get product.
Right.
And those standards may include what your shop looks like, how your shop services as customers, the minimum number of hours your shop is open, or if you're doing...
That's a huge one.
Sure.
That is a huge one.
Maybe the assortment of product you carry and the depth of product you carry.
Yeah.
For breakers, the quality of your live stream, following certain rules, like how you're handling cards and cards being on camera the entire time,
Yep.
ethics, integrity. Topps can begin to dictate all of that if they have more direct accounts and there's not as many middlemen in the hobby. And I think all of that's a good thing. Like some people are absolutely going to watch this and say, that's Big Brother. Like Topps wanting to do all that, that's Big Brother. Like we're it's monopolistic. Okay, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, I've raised that question to you prior about Topps' hand on everything now, especially if they acquire Panini, then it is a monopoly over the hobby.
But sometimes for innovation to occur, there has to be a push and there has to be a centralized push. And sometimes, you've got to have Big Brother kind of looking at the group and saying like, okay, we are upping our game. We are raising our game and we're going to force change. And Topps and Fanatics are trying to force change. And I think they're trying to force change in a good and healthy direction. They're trying to make the hobby experience better for all of the new collectors coming in. And I see it as a positive.
Okay, so you think what the biggest thing is right now is that it's just the grasp on the way that quote unquote things were, that people are, you think maybe people are just not wanting to let go of, like, the past 20, 30 years, we've done things a certain way. Why do we now need to change or adapt to a company that's now being like Big Brother?
I mean, I think
is
that's
it
part
because
of it.
they can't see the future of what it could be?
I think people are scared of one company exerting this much control. Like, I think they're scared of...
I mean, it's an honest fear.
Sure. They're scared of one company exerting that much control. I get it. But if you look at like what Fanatics did in the apparel business,
Right.
They really had this incredible growth by signing all of these exclusive contracts with tons of universities and sports leagues, where they have taken over as the official apparel provider, the official merchandise provider. And in many cases, they have taken over as the official retailer. So they are actually operating. Fanatics operates the stores, the retail stores, the official apparel stores for many universities, for many sports teams around the country. They operate the team stores.
Yeah.
Those stores, because I've been in a whole bunch of these Fanatics run stores.
There's one right around the corner for Atlanta United and the Falcons. It's ran by Fanatics.
They're well merchandised.
Yep.
They're well serviced. They're attractive.
And great locations.
They're in good locations. You walk in and there's always ample selection. It's a well-run store. compare that to some old dusty sports card shops, which don't have that feel. And I think Topps and Fanatics are saying, just like how we've upped the game of how sports apparel retailers look and operate, we want sports card shops to up their game as well.
Right.
And I think that's ultimately what this comes back to. So yes, it is more control. I understand people being concerned about it being monopolistic. Fanatics exerts that type of control in the apparel world. And I think it's been, for the most part, a positive. And that's not to say that they're perfect, but what we have today is definitely not perfect. And that's the thing. It's like when people complain about this idea of like, they're going to be a dictator, right? I'm like, okay, but are we happy with where we are today? Because I think it could be a lot better than where it is today. I think that your average card shop could provide a better experience than what it's providing today. And there's many card shops that do things very, very well today. I'm not picking on every single card shop, but I think overall, as a whole, the game of card shops could be raised, to a higher standard. I think overall as a whole, the game of breakers could be raised to a higher standard. And so, is it a little dictatorish for Topps to be the one to force some of that? Maybe. But at the same time, I think it's going to be a positive.
Yeah, somebody's good. Like you said, somebody's going to do it.
Yeah.
But I mean, we harken back to what you just said about 10xing the hobby, right? It's that expectation with a new consumer joining the hobby on like what they expect to see. If somebody found out that this terrible correlation, but if somebody found out that they really like beer, they really love this idea of like learning about beer, trying the different beers, etc. You can go to like an old-timey, old brewery, see the way things were done way back when. But are you going to go there consistently every day? No. You'll probably also really like the new upgraded breweries, the ones that have like nice patios, doors, like huge spouts, lots of like taps on pour, like these elevated stainless steel barrels. Like, I mean, there's ways that things modernize in any hobby, whether it's beer, whether it's wine, whether it's whatever it is. You can still echo back to the nostalgia of it, but you should move forward for sure. And I agree with you on that, but it does feel like at this moment somebody's got to do a push, so it does feel like Topps is the one that's making that push. Now,
by the way, I think that's a great example, because if you think about bars, there are bars that are still around from the 70s and the 80s, and most of them are dive bars. Like most of them are these kind of dark bars that draw the same crowd of locals routinely. They're not particularly inviting. They have their crowd, and that crowd's probably been going there for a long time. Loyal.
Very loyal.
And for somebody new who just moves into the city,
right,
it's a little like, intimidating maybe, because you're not part of that group. You're not part of that crowd.
It's exclusive and exclusatory.
And the design it's not welcoming. It's not warm. It's not friendly. It's not modern. It's not everybody's welcome here. And then you compare that to like the new concepts you see, which, with in some cases, self-service taps or at least beautiful interiors and, that type of thing, very friendly, open tasting rooms and all that and that much different feel and vibe, and much more welcoming to the new person.
Community events,
much more welcoming to the new person coming in. And like the rise you've seen in craft beer in recent years has been all around like, let's open up these tasting rooms. Let's create a culture around this. Let's get more people in. And look at the growth of craft beer as a result of that. It's created this entire culture. There are so many great craft beer venues in almost every city in America now. Yeah. And people love that. They got like a real culture around it.
I mean, even look at it.
I think it's a great analogy.
Like grocery stores, right? Where you would consider grocery stores being like a Fanatics or like a local hobby card shop or something that's outside of that brewery that you can't go directly to the source, and they sell it externally. When we're talking about craft beers, I remember growing up only seeing the heavy hitters, right? The Bud Lights, the Miller Lights, the Budweiser, Michelob, like all of these big names. So rarely did you ever see a beer that you didn't know where it came from. And then now it feels like the craft beer section is as big, if not bigger, than the big distributor section. So I think that's weirdly, it did end up becoming a really good point. So, but hearkening back to local card shops, because that's clearly the point. That's the hobby that we're in. What can Topps be doing that can better service these direct accounts that are now coming on board, that are signing up under the terms for allocation of product to sell within the store, allocation of product on special terms to sell on the website, allocation of product to sell for breaking.
Yeah.
Like, what can they be doing to better assist all of these new accounts that will be trying to flood in now to get allocation from them?
I think they need to orient their products so that their products are oriented best for the need of the store or breaker they're selling the product to. So, and I think they're thinking in this direction. So one thing that I always thought was a little strange about how a lot of these distribution contracts and direct contracts worked in the past is that if you were a card shop and you signed up for a direct account with Panini, for example, you got like the full mix of products. And sometimes you got products that really didn't make sense for you to be selling in your local store.
Right.
Like a local card shop getting boxes of Flawless. Well, what are you really going to do with that? If you don't have an online breaking operation, what are you doing with boxes of Flawless? Because it's really rare for you to have a customer that's going to walk in and drop $10,000 on a box of cards.
Right.
So what these dealers were doing, what these card shops were doing is they were getting their Flawless allocation and then they were turning around and reselling it to breakers because they didn't really need the Flawless allocation. What they really need is they need more product that is oriented for people who are actually coming in their shop. And then that's sometimes where they never felt like they could get enough. Card shops, in the case of Panini, card shops should be getting more Prism, because that's like a great product, or more products below the Prism level. Hopefully have more reasonable prices over time as well.
Yeah.
But those types of products are better. And even Prism's a higher end expensive product for most people coming in shops. But that's actually where I would also love to see some additional innovation. I think that the manufacturers could create versions of the product that are oriented towards each use case of who's selling it. So for example, Prism could have smaller versions of the hobby box where it's 4-packs or 6-packs, or maybe even a single pack that's sold not by the hobby shop owner ripping a box open,
Right.
which always makes you nervous that, the best packs of it were taken out already, but an actual individual pack boxed product from the manufacturer. So you're buying a single pack of Prism, but it's encased in a little bit of a box so that there's no, funny business as to what's actually going to be in there. Those would be products that I would love to see hobby shops get a lot more of, because selling a single pack of Prism for $50 to a customer walking in the store, in many cases, they might rather buy that than an entire box of a low-end product like an NBA Hoops or something like that. They might rather buy the single pack or the 2-pack of Prism. I'm not talking about the retail product. I'm talking about the actual hobby shop product that has the chance of all the one-of-ones and all the big hit cards, that you're not going to find as much of in retail. So, and I think for example, even a really high-end product like a Flawless, like a National Treasures, in Topps world, like a Transcendent, like a Topps Dynasty, I would love to see them create a single, well, not Dynasty because that's already a single card product, but for Transcendent, for National Treasures, for Flawless, could they create a single card box? Could they create, your typical National Treasures box has 10 cards in it and sells for a few $1,000s, depending on what sport it is and what year, maybe sometimes more, sometimes a little less. But could you create just a single card, $200, one card from National Treasures? It's a real big chance. It's a real big, you may end up with a base card in there worth $5, but you also may end up with a logo man. You got the chance at the $100,000 card or even the $1 million card in a $200 box. I like that. So I hope that the manufacturers get creative with their configurations now that they're going to be selling more direct. I hope that they segment products out better, that they give the hobby shops variations of products that are really attractive for them to sell at retail. And then I hope they give breakers variations of the products that are better suited for them to break with, that make more sense for the breakers. So I hope we see that stratification of product as we go forward.
Do you think with the reporting metrics that they put in place with these terms, that would help to better advance that that possibility. Because if Topps knows what's selling in a store, then they have the ability to then, adapt the way that they produce products or make products for, levels of hobby shops, right?
100%. Yeah, of course. Fanatics has hired a bunch of data people on their team. Like they want to track the data of all of this, but I imagine the weakest element to their data tracking ability right now is they have no visibility into what's happening at retail. They know what they're selling to the card shops,
right?
But they're getting very little,
right,
understanding back of what the card shops are then doing with the products and how they're selling it. So they want more of that. I mean, ultimately, I could see this going in the direction of Topps creating their own point of sale system, which they then require card shops to use their point of sale system.
Yep.
Because that point of sale system is reporting all the sales data, back to the mothership, Topps, in a real-time basis. I could see that being the case. Now, whether they'll get to that point or not, I don't know. I don't know if that's in their plans, but that's, I used to be a franchisee. Now, a franchise model is a little different because you're truly beholden in a franchise model to the franchisor, contractually beholden. So this is different. But in almost all franchise situations, your point of sale as a franchisee is dictated by the franchisor. You have to use their authorized specific point of sale.
You also have to look a certain way.
Sure. Well, yeah, there's all kinds of restrictions and store inspections and all that kind of stuff. And the reason why they require you to use their point of sale is because they want all the data. And by using their point of sale, all the data gets, forced up to them.
Right. Marketing strategies. All right. So to sum this all up, you think the terms that were released by Topps are only going to help benefit the local hobby card shops and the actual collectors themselves, and it will be cutting out the middlemen. You see no fall throughs on outside of clearly everyone else's feelings about the dictatorness of the terms that have come down. You see no fault in what's happening currently.
Well, I don't think I think there's probably a lot of card shop owners that don't like it because it eliminates their flexibility.
Right.
And especially those that were getting more wax and selling it out the back door through these different channels. They're absolutely not going to like it. So for them, sure, it's not good news.
Right.
However, there are other card shops this is going to be very good news for, because those are the ones that previously couldn't get direct accounts, had to buy their wax from other card shops, or on DealerNet or whatever. And now hopefully they'll have an opportunity for a direct account. They'll have an opportunity to get a more reasonable allocation of product based upon what their needs are. Hopefully it fixes some of the unevenness in allocations between card shops, and card shops begin to get, what they actually need. So, certainly there's going to be some that don't like it, but overall for the hobby, I think it's a positive. I think it pushes things forward. I think Topps and Fanatics taking a little more control, it makes total business sense to me. And I'm hoping and believing that it's also going to do the right thing for the hobby by raising this standard on everybody.
Okay. All right. Now I do want to go into our little segment.
Yep.
Because we talked about, product, and we also talked about reporting and understanding what possibly works, what doesn't work on selling stuff. So when we talked about how they could transform product from Topps, I do want us to have a conversation like, if you were Topps, what would you do with each of the products? So the first one is Topps Transcendence.
Yeah, so Transcendent is their highest end product. It's a crazy product. They only make like 100 boxes of it a year or something like that. It's like $20,000 a box, 100 cards, I believe. This is a product that, in that form should never go to a card shop.
Right.
But a lot of card shops get it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the wacky thing about it, in my opinion. It's totally a product for breakers. However, I would love to see card shops be able to participate in that product because it's such a premier premium product. So that's one of the examples where I think Topps should make a mini Transcendent box.
Right.
I think they should have the full 100 card boxes available to breakers. And then I think maybe all card shops should get these mini Transcendent boxes that contain a single card of Transcendent. And it's a $200 box, and you get one card.
Right.
And it's the single edition of Topps Transcendent, and send each card shop an allocation of those. That to me is orienting a product for, the proper environment of people coming into the store.
Okay. That makes sense. Topps Dynasty.
So Dynasty is a high-end product, $1,000 a box or something like that. It contains only one card. So it's kind of almost, it's even more extreme than what I just suggested with Transcendent, right? Dynasty's really, it really should be more of a breaker product. It really is a breaker product. It's really not a card shop product, because you're not going to have many people come in and buy a single card, a single pack for $1,000, a one card pack for $1,000. So, it's a beautiful product though, but I think that one is probably more breaker oriented. I don't know that it provides enough value for the card shop. I don't know how you make a configuration of that one for the card shops. Since it's already one card for like $1,000, I don't know, but people love it. Maybe, I don't know, maybe card shops do special events with it. Maybe so here's an idea.
You could raffle it.
You could raffle it.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a product that then leads up to being able to get a box of Dynasty. So for example, maybe you give each card shop 3 boxes or 5 boxes or 12 boxes of Dynasty, but then instead of them having to sell directly at a price point that might be difficult, maybe you put in Topps Chrome or Topps Series 1 or Topps Series 2. If you're sending a card shop 120 boxes of Topps Series 2, then maybe 1 out of every 10 of those boxes
has a golden ticket
to get a free box of Dynasty.
Right.
And so that's how the Dynasty for the card shop is actually allocated down. So the card shop can participate in it. What that will do is drive up interest and prices
for Series 2.
Yeah. So, and the numbers on that would probably need to change a little bit from what I suggested, because actually there's a lot more Series 2 sold and printed than that. So, but the idea is there. Maybe you do something like that.
Yeah. Topps Chrome.
Topps Chrome's a great product for card shop. Topps Chrome is a great universal product because it's got the high-end hits that breakers love. You can find the super fractors, but there's a lot of it printed, and it's a great product for card shops because it's still relatively affordable. I would like to see, maybe with Topps Chrome, maybe there's a different configuration of it that is, more guaranteed autos and parallels and everything, that's more of a breaker product.
Yeah.
And then your everyday Topps Chrome is just a staple card shop product.
Like a Topps Chrome breaker, Topps Chrome hobby.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And I think the hobby's a great card shop product, and then you can have a little bit of a bigger hit mix for it for the breakers potentially, but at a higher price point.
Okay. Last one, but it's like two. It's 2 products, but technically one product. Topps Series 1 and Series 2.
Topps Series 1 and 2 is really designed just to be a very affordable entry-level product. It's a great product for collectors to start with. They print a ton of it. It's not an investment product.
Ooh.
Occasionally, there are certain cards in there like the golds.
Still fun to open.
It's still fun to open.
Yeah.
And you can get numbered cards in there. You can find certain things, but they're not super frequent. You end up with a lot of base cards. You end up with just a big stack of cards for a small amount of money.
Right.
And so for that reason, I think it's a great entry-level product. They call it the flagship product for a reason. I think it's a great product for kids. I think it's a great product for any new collector, anyone who wants to build, sets out or team sets or cards. It's a great product. I think it mainly is a hobby shop product because it's inexpensive. It's a good entry point. It's not as great for the breakers because it's producing so many cards at an inexpensive price point, which means shipping and sorting become really difficult. It's also not producing that many big hit moments, which also makes the breaks less exciting.
Right.
So I would really orient Series 1 and Series 2 to the card shops and make that a real big deal.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think we hit on a lot of points today, and I think, you expressed where your thoughts were with the terms that came out. And I generally agree. I think the time will tell on how this all works, but I do think the hobby in general needs a nudge to go in the right direction. And this is the way that they're doing it. So, I think those great points today.
It is the bold frontier. We'll see where this all goes. Hopefully I am right. Hopefully I have reason to be optimistic about this. Fingers crossed. But it's
Yeah.
going to certainly be an exciting next few years for the hobby to watch all of this unfold.
Yeah.
And we hope you guys enjoy the episode today. Don't forget, these podcasts are available on Spotify as well as Apple Podcasts, as well as the video version on YouTube. And then clips from all of these are available on the It's Geoff Wilson accounts on Instagram and TikTok. Thanks for watching. Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah, of course.
See you next time.